Hey.
Hi, I'm Sue from the Hoff-Mor Canning Company, and I'd like to know if you'd like to buy some jam.
Sue, it's me, Anthony. We went to school together. What are you doing here?
Anthony, oh my God, it's so good to see you.
You didn't recognize me with my hair all done?
I didn't at first, but I do now.
And you're selling jam?
I'm selling jam. My sister and I have a homemade jam company, and I have some delicious cherry bomb jam if you're interested in buying
Sue,
some.
I have a lot of ideas for that jam, so you need to come in here. We're gonna get some baking going.
Hey there, and welcome back to the Sugar Treatment, where we bake and heal together. My name's Anthony, aka the Baking Social Worker. If you haven't already, make sure that you subscribe to my channel, like this video, and email me at thesugartreatment@gmail.com. Let me know what you'd like us to talk about here on the show. I was just in the process of filming today an episode on PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, when my friend Sue was just knocking at the door.
Some new people need to get introduced to our jams. So I'm so glad when you opened the door, because I think we have some jams that might work for your show.
Well, yeah, I was gonna, throw together something. Do you have a recipe in mind or something? Because
well, let me tell you what I brought with me, and we can see what we've got.
Okay.
So I have Tears of Joy. This is a savory caramelized onion jam.
Oh my gosh.
Delicious on burgers or with some brie cheese. We have Figment of Our Imagination, which is fig with raspberries and mint.
We love a good pun here on the Sugar Treatment.
I'm all about the punny names. We have Cherry Bomb. That is a cherry nectarine jam with brandy.
Nice.
And we have Berry Lemony, which is a blueberry lemon jam. So I have with me a recipe for a cherry bomb tart that I think, if you'd let me be on your show, we could make together.
I think we'll let her be on the show.
Oh, thank you.
You did come very prepared.
I tried.
Yes. All right. Well, let's get started.
First, spray your pan. Line your pan with your pastry dough.
We're gonna take 2 nectarines and dice them up and just sprinkle the dices across the bottom of the pan.
So what is next?
So our next step, well, before we get to the next step, let me just point out that Anthony has already screwed up. So he used a puff pastry for the pastry on this recipe, but it really should be regular pastry dough. You can either make your own if you have your favorite pastry recipe, or you can get store-bought stuff. This will be a good experiment to see what puff pastry does to this recipe.
I never position myself as a professional baker on this show, and my audience should know that. Okay, I'm an amateur. I'm a professional social worker, amateur baker, and you just dropped by today, Sue. So we're gonna roll with what we got.
Don't blame
okay?
me, man. Don't blame me. The next step, however, is to add the cherry bomb, and we have 2 8-ounce jars. So we're just gonna spread them all on top of the pastry, on top of those chopped up nectarines that we have there.
I love the way you can them. They're beautiful.
Thank you. That is all my sister. She does the magic for that.
You guys are quite the team.
We are quite the team. I could not do this without her.
Oh my God, it looks so good.
Yeah.
I want to talk to you about our topic while you're spreading this on, because it's looking beautiful. We're talking about PTSD today.
Yes.
And I understand that you have a little bit of knowledge about PTSD because you're a social worker just like me.
I am a social worker just like you.
So do you think you can help me to kind of tell our audience a little bit about PTSD?
I think we could definitely talk about that.
So what is it?
So PTSD stands for post-traumatic stress disorder. And that is basically the symptoms and the experience of having gone through trauma. And it's the lasting effect of that experience that a lot of people still deal with, sometimes months, years after the fact.
Yeah.
And it's really serious. It is very invasive, and it can affect every area of your life.
And I mean, so when we think of PTSD, we may automatically go to veterans, people who've gone to war, because of course they've probably witnessed some of the things you just mentioned, right?
Exactly.
But it truly can extend to everyone. It can affect anyone and everyone.
Everyone and anyone who has experienced firsthand something really traumatic.
Yeah.
So it can be children who have witnessed their parents in really awful domestic violence situations. It can be children who were subjected to sexual trauma. It can be somebody who has gone through a really bad car accident and had a near-death experience.
Yeah.
It can be watching a loved one die unexpectedly.
Yeah.
So that was my personal experience with PTSD. So I know this firsthand, that it looks different for different people, and it affects them differently.
Yeah.
But this is ready to go in the oven.
Since we used the wrong pastry, we're gonna go ahead and put our sliced roasted almonds inside of the tart instead of on top. It's gonna be great.
So now we're gonna place the top layer of dough on the bottom, and we'll just pinch the edges. Okay, so since we're using a puff pastry, we're gonna do just a little egg wash, which is just egg white and water, and that'll give this a nice golden color when it's cooked. We're gonna poke some holes in this, and then we're gonna throw it in the oven at 350 and bake it for about 50 minutes until it's nice and golden and ready to go.
I work with severely mentally ill patients and in a hospital setting, and I had a patient the other day who was a firefighter and for many years, and he was severely injured while he was working, and he has lately been re-triggered by what is going on in California and just throughout the West Coast, these major fires that we've never seen before, and he's seeing them on the news, and it's like it's re-triggering him to the point where he had like a psychotic episode. Has that happened for you? Have you had something similar?
Yeah, I have, in fact, just recently. So my experience with PTSD was that my fiance died. He had a heart attack and he died in front of me. And so just a few weeks or months ago, my current partner, I got a 911 text on my phone because I'm listed as his emergency contact.
That would freak me out.
It totally freaked me out,
Yeah.
and sent me back to this place where I was, 8 years ago when I witnessed somebody die. And so I couldn't breathe, I couldn't even talk. My sister was there with me. We were making jam, actually. And I was like, oh my God, I have to go. And she's like, what? And I'm like, I couldn't even speak.
That's the trauma response.
That was the trauma response.
Yeah.
And I quickly drove to my partner's house. I was practically hyperventilating by the time I was there.
Yeah.
Swung the door open, expecting to find the worst. And he was sitting at the table like, hey babe, how you doing? So the mix of emotions, I was overwhelmed. I had this panic and then this moment of just immense relief that I literally broke down, and he was hugging me. He's like, we're gonna be okay, it's gonna be fine. But we never know, right? Even not having somebody there when you expect them to be there.
Yeah.
Or getting some random, and it only turned out that he had like somehow blown up the screen on his iPhone and he couldn't figure out how to get it reset, and he accidentally called 911. So like this little simple mistake sent me into this crazy state of panic.
That kind of like leads my mind to those spaces where it makes me think of like what happens to these people when they don't have a compassionate person responding to that trauma response, or when they don't have like a healthy outlet or a healthy way of dealing with it, and it leads to things like drug use or violence, difficulty in relationships, suicide.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, where do we go from there? Like how can we heal? How can we make sure that those who are suffering from PTSD do have a healthy way of dealing with those trauma responses?
Yeah, and I think the way that we can help them is to make sure that they know one of the best things that they can do is know that it's okay that you have this response to this really horrific event that happened. Trauma is huge, and it's traumatic, right? That's the word. It's self-defining how impactful that is for people. And I think there's a lot of people who will say, oh yeah, I went through that, but it was no big deal and it didn't really bother me. And yet they're irritable for no apparent reason. They can't sleep at night. They don't really know why. They may be self-medicating with drugs or alcohol.
Yeah.
They may be constantly looking over their shoulder and not trusting people. Lack of trust is a big issue for folks with PTSD.
Yeah.
And I think, those folks that say, well, yeah, I went through that, but it's not a big deal. The first step in healing is to say, yeah, I went through that and it impacted me and it affected me and I need to do something about it. And to link that irritability and that substance use and that lack of sleep and all of those symptoms back to that moment of trauma and say, this is because of that. I had Megan on a few weeks ago on your show, and you talked about how trauma changes the brain.
Yeah.
And it's true, it really does. And so we have to reprogram our brain. We can do that by talking to a therapist. We can do that through EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization. I have such a hard time.
It's a tough one. It's a lot of syllables.
It's a lot of syllables. Too many letters in one word for my taste. And reprocessing, which is the R part of EMDR.
Yes.
Where you can actually go back to that moment and kind of reprocess and desensitize yourself to that experience so that you can heal.
You know, I'm a social worker. I work in this field. I work with people who have PTSD. And I talked about this on my show, so I won't go into it in detail, but I went through an experience at work where a client tried to attack me. And it was sort of a traumatic experience, and I noticed some, you know, I was on alert afterward, and I didn't know if I wanted to walk into work, and are they gonna be there waiting for me? Did they get my license plate? Do they know my car? Are they following me home? You know, I started thinking about all of those things, and so I was like, oh, this is PTSD, like I'm having a traumatic response. But it did take me a moment to be like, should I get help? You know, like I should be strong enough to deal with this. Even me, like I'm a social worker. I know this stuff. Like I've studied it, right? And even me, I was like, do I have to go get therapy? Like, do I need to go talk to somebody? And like,
yes, the answer is yes.
I know.
I think the problem is that so many people think, I'm strong, it doesn't matter, I've got this, I don't need to talk to anybody. Therapy is BS, right? I mean, they have these conceptions of, if I go to therapy, it must be because I'm weak.
Yes.
The number one sign of strength is saying I need help.
And just to let you know, I did go and talk to a therapist at
Yay.
work. I did at work. They provided someone for me to speak to, and it was on a short-term basis, but it was very helpful. And it was like, I need to practice what I preach, right? If I'm telling my clients to do this and to be brave enough to ask for help, then I need to be able to do it too. And it helped. Yeah. Go figure.
Imagine that.
Go figure.
Wait, Go Figure. I have a jam that's named Go Figure.
You would have a jam that's called Go Figure.
Named Go Figure.
And it has figs in it.
It has figs. And balsamic.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so let's check this because it's looking golden brown.
Oh,
What do you
that
think?
looks perfect.
It looks good because we used the puff pastry. It's a little shorter time, so we're gonna take it out now.
The cherry bomb tart is done.
Excellent.
And it looks so good. The last thing we need to do is just sprinkle it with some powdered sugar. So I'm gonna give that to you,
Take that,
to our viewers out there. Thank you so much for watching this video. Make sure you like this video. If you haven't already, subscribe to my channel. Email me at thesugartreatment@gmail.com. Let me know what you'd like us to talk about here on the show. And also, Sue, where can our viewers find this yummy jam?
They can find our jam at hoffmorcanning.com, link below.
Link below. We're gonna put the link below. And I'm also gonna put some resources in the description below if you or anyone that you know is suffering from PTSD, so be sure to check those out. The moment of truth.
The moment of truth.
Did the puff pastry deliver? You can't go wrong with puff pastry, and you can't go wrong with this jam.
This is not your grandma's jam.
Keep it sweet.